Janavi, the most important thing is that if you're using something in your story, it has to be really, really used well, really relevant. And how to use India in your story is what I thought we could talk about in today's episode. And I think that a lot of people use it well, a lot of people use it badly. And perhaps what we could do is do a bit of a deep dive on how social media apps that are India oriented are using it badly, and what is it that a founder and a CEO can actually learn from this. If you're trying to use India in your story, how to do it, how not to do it. How does that work for you?
Or how not to overdo it, perhaps.
Or how not to overdo it. Chalo, let's do it. So if I have to look at the way in which you look at storytelling can be used in a lot of areas, and both of us are storytellers and we practice the art of storytelling in the workshops that we do. So one of the key aspects that I was thinking of was, is there a way in which we can literally look at an area like how to use XYZ in your in your product or service, for any founder or for any CEO? How can we help them do that? So one of the biggest things to do is to look at a challenge like, how do you use India in your story, right? So can you give me a bit of a background on the kind of storytelling that is being done on social media apps? Or is there any social media app that is being doing a good job or bad job or whatever?
Okay, so these are two very nuanced questions. First is, there are a number of social media apps that are coming on the India story, backed by the India story. We have the latest is Aratai. We had Koo that recently shut down last year. We have ShareChat that is doing quite well. We have Moj. We have Josh, right? So all these apps, they are building on the India growth story, or rather on the nationalism story of India. The problem with these apps is they are a lookalike of the Western apps that are already in the picture. Now, for example, Coop was a complete copy paste of Twitter or X.
Yeah.
Right? ShareChat is very much on the basis of TikTok with a few differentiations, which are in fact helping it out now. We'll talk about it as we go.
Yeah.
Right? Aratai is quite a copy paste of WhatsApp, but again, a number of differentiators that are helping it build to its 7.5 million downloads presently. Right? So the problem with all of these apps is very consistent. They are a copy paste of what is already in the market and very, very widely adopted in the market, right? And they all seem to be built on one common backbone, which is the India growth story, which is the India story, nationalism, patriotism, and all of that stuff. Now, the problem with the India story is that it is very good to get people on board. The initial acquisitions are amazing. They were amazing for Koo. They are amazing for Aratai. They were really good for ShareChat and Moj, right? But they're not enough to sustain these apps going forward, and which is why these apps keep on shutting down.
Yeah, and in spite of them having the same features and functions that their Western counterparts have. In fact, Janavi, I used to ask a lot of my students, can you start a Facebook in Mica, for example? And a lot of people used to say, yes, of course we can, and we can do this and we can do that, and we've got all the best technical talent. And I was like, do you know the backstory of how Facebook actually got built and why people started believing in Facebook? So why should people believe in your story? Why should people believe in you, right? So why should people believe in a social media app that has come out of India, right? What is the differentiating factor? And it cannot be features and functions. I think most people think that, oh, if I just do this and connect and plug and play the India story, it is going to work. It is not going to work. You have to own it, and that is one of the core aspects that we wanted to actually have a discussion about. Now, if I look at the way in which even a multinational like Amazon has become an India brand, they've built their story differently. So it's not just social media apps that face this problem. What I think is really critical is, why should people believe in you? So why should people believe in an India-oriented social media app? Janavi, are these guys doing anything differently to call out the India thing besides getting the early evangelists, for Koo and for Aratai and etc.?
Okay, so here I'll bring in the point where the biggest market for any marketplace, for any big app, for any consumer company, luxury company, automobile company, whatever it may be, biggest market in the world is India. Most of their traffic is coming from India. WhatsApp, Facebook, most of their traffic is coming from India. X has most of the consumers from India, right?
Yes.
That might be because of population, that might be because of penetration of the digital ecosystem and all of that stuff, right? Now, I think these apps or any Indian made app is forgetting to leverage the Indian public per se. Right now, why is the India growth story a very good place for acquisition? Now let us look at how Modi got actually elected in India. 2014 happened because there was an India growth story wave. right?
Yes.
Which was leveraged by Modi to become the Modi wave. But that is not what got him elected in 2019. There were a lot of things that were done before 2019 that got him re-elected with a landslide victory. And I think this 2014 to 2019 journey is what apps are missing mostly. 2014 is going very great, right? Now, for example, if you look at Aratai, within days, the signups jumped from 3,000 to 350,000. There was a
Hmm.
similar uptake for coup. People came onto the platform. People knew that there was a tyranny happening on Twitter against which they wanted that nationalism sentiment, that voice to come out on their own social media apps. So they took to coup. But then what happened was it flatlined because people are already very much used to the existing platforms. Your network is already there on Instagram. It's there on Twitter. The people you follow are on Twitter. The
Yeah.
Westerners that you look up to, they are already on Twitter. Your family, your friends, your business contacts, they're already on WhatsApp. So from that, the India growth story is not enough to change the entire habit of a user to just forego a Western app or forego any existing app to come onto the platform just because they feel very patriotic.
Absolutely, and this is true even in the Western markets. Like, so if I look at Blue Sky, and or if I look at Truth Social, right, two copycats of Twitter haven't really worked.
Yeah,
Okay, so and in fact, Blue Sky probably is trying to build on the story like Twitter is for the right, or the the right wing, so Blue Sky can be all woke liberal sort of thing. Hasn't worked beyond just getting that initial evangelist who'll say, yes, I believe in your movement, or I'll believe in. So why should people believe in you is because at the end of it, for a social media app, I need to get an experience which is not just reflective of my value system but also of what I'm fighting for. So I need to get a contrast, I need to get a fair representation of the people who don't believe. So why should people believe in you also has something to do with people who don't believe. And the fact is, if I look at what is working against all of these apps, is that there is no opposition, there is no contrast. There is just, and there is no connect to the type of India that they want to build. There is no connect to anything specific. Like you said, Modi actually changed his thing. So he was not talking to the same India in 2014 and now. So it is, India keeps changing. You can't just keep saying that, okay, we'll provide all the features and functions and this is for Desh Bhakts. It's not going to work like that, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think the critical aspect, and which I'd love you to answer, is what do you think is working against besides this contrast? Is there anything else that is working against these apps for which they're not getting into the early majority?
Yeah, first is they completely alienate one side. Why Twitter or why
Mm,
Reddit actually works is because there's a lot of discussion happening. There are two
mm,
point of views that are coming into the picture, and that's why the discussion becomes very engaging,
yes.
right? There is a lot of gully galoch happening on these platforms, and if
Yes.
you completely take out the moderation that happens from the
Mm,
founders, right, that Jack Dorsey was infamous for, if you completely take
yeah.
it out of the picture that coup had done, there was
Yeah.
no polarity within the platform. The first early adopters were people like Piyush Goyal, people from the government. It is
Mm,
great
mm.
to have their opinions. We want to have their opinions, but I can have their opinions on Twitter also,
Yeah.
right? Twitter isn't
Yeah.
powerful enough to block somebody like Narendra Modi or Piyush Goyal or Donald
No.
Trump or whatever. They got
Yeah.
right. So I can have their opinions, but what I need is to be able to give my opinion. And I know even if I have something against some particular policy of Piyush Goyal's, if I write it on coup, hundreds of
Mm,
people are going to snap me for it. So I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to do that on Twitter, even if I
mm.
am a Deshbhakt,
So
right?
if I have to look at what you're saying, and maybe probe you a little more, what
Yeah.
can you do differently if you're say an Aratai, or if you're a coup? What can you do differently at this stage? If you can just, why, what would a young founder or a CEO find of interest in going to such platforms?
Yeah, I will. Okay, so for this, I will use what this opening statement that you gave, right? How to use XYZ in your story and not how
Mm,
to base XYZ as your story. What Ku
got it.
and Aratai and all of these platforms did wrongly was they
Mm,
based their story on India, on
mm.
nationalism sentiment, right?
Yeah.
That is a very limiting factor to come into.
Yeah.
Okay, nationalists come onto your platform. Now what? That is not what's keeping them there. That's not what's causing
Yeah.
the stickiness, right?
Yeah. So
People will
you've kind of painted yourself in a corner already without knowing it. Is
exactly.
what you're
Your,
saying.
your
Mm.
story has to be something else and it has to use India-backed app, nationalism sentiment, a voice for unheard Indians or something like that into the picture, which is something that ShareChat did very well. And this is perhaps it is succeeding. ShareChat is very much like TikTok and it came into limelight when
Mm.
TikTok ban happened, right? But
Hmm.
why did Mods not succeed? Why did Josh not succeed? And why did ShareChat succeed? Because it was primarily based on the vernacular content. It was based on the Hindi majority content. Even now that you
Beautiful.
it is the content, or even the quick mini drama series, the short drama series that is the bread and butter of ShareChat, that is estimated, that has, given them a forecast of growth in 2026, is a very different format that TikTok does not allow, or TikTok is not.
What's really interesting is when you look at all of these stories that these guys seem to have painted them. I was just thinking about it as you said. See, the issue is about evolutionary biology.
Mhm.
So I don't understand how I'm actually impacting your brain. So if I tell you in a logical and rational way that, hey, come to this platform because we are all about India, I'm talking to your rational side. Actually, I need to connect to your emotional side and also make it into a habit. I also need to make it into your subconscious mind. And what I understand very deeply is the way in which a story hacks through and connects back into your subconscious mind, right? Now these guys haven't done it. These guys have continuously said, oh, we are India story. So that's a very logical, rational thing. But if you look at the example that you gave about ShareChat, and I wanted to connect it to a bigger example like TikTok, and I'll get there. What they did, ShareChat, seems to be like they have connected at an emotional level about what it means. And it's always a question of meaning. What does it mean to be on this platform? So if I
Yeah.
look at TikTok, why I'm taking TikTok as a really big example is because it was the first huge social media platform which did not come out of Silicon Valley, right? So it was actually coming out of China. Now,
Yeah.
did they say, hey, we are from China or we're from Singapore or whatever? No, they didn't. What they did was that they stood for a different type of experience, right? So the different type of experience was all about, okay, the democratization of storytelling. Now, look at how weird this is. China and talking of democratization of storytelling or the democratization of content. But that is what the vernaculars and all of that before India banned TikTok, TikTok was really picking up, where all of this stream of content creators were going to. Now the
Yeah.
vernacular, the democratization of content is why I go there. I don't go there because it is a China story or an India story. It is not going to really help.
And also, what TikTok did, and what any big company does, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely agree. They do not use the China story. They built for their target market.
Yeah.
If your story is India, then build
Hmm.
for the Indian market. Right? Coop
Yes.
was not built for the Indian market. Coop was
Yes.
using the vernaculars, agreed, which was also one of the bigger pain points in their capital investment. Right?
Hmm.
They unleashed what I think 1825 languages altogether. They were facing a lot of
Yes.
problem with the
Yes.
vernacular translations and moderations and
Yes.
all that stuff. So that was very capital intensive for them, which was a hindrance for their ops. First problem.
Yes.
Second
Yes.
is people are facing some issues with Twitter, and it is
Hmm.
not just content moderation.
Hmm.
It is Twitter was never built for the Indian audience, even though the adoption of Indian audience was high merely
Yeah.
because the population number is high, right? But that was
Yes.
not the reason. So why are Indians using Twitter? First, try to understand that. That is what helps you build coup. You are not building for the market.
Yeah, and it's not like, oh, if you just create a Twitter for India, it's going to work. You got to create a different experience, which has a different meaning for me. I just cannot create a generic Twitter-like experience and say, hey, it's for Indians. It's not going to work. So what can actually help you, Janavi, right? So what can actually help you is if you define your story and your experience differently from the get-go and don't paint yourself in a corner.
Yourself in a corner, and then your story has to translate into your product features, into the stickiness of your product, into the entire hooked cycle of your product. Now let us take an example of copycatting, right? I think we deemed this episode like 50 shades of copycatting. So let us look at the copycats out there. Threads is a very big copycat of Twitter,
Yes.
and
Yes.
Threads is actually overtaking Twitter now. There's
Mm.
just a difference of 200 million monthly active users between
Mm.
Threads and X. And
Mm.
Threads is just what I think one and a half year back, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
what? And it is a complete copy paste. The
Yes.
UI is very much similar to Twitter. The
Yeah.
discussions happening, everything algorithm is very much similar to Twitter. But what is keeping people on Threads the biggest is the type of content, the type of discussions that happen on Threads is very much different from what happens on Twitter. Twitter is all about politics and geo stuff and all of that. Threads is very much like an Instagramish content. It is about
Yeah.
me. It is about my personal the things that I love, the things that make me happy. It is like an art gallery in a word format and all of that stuff,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
the adoption for threads is number one simpler because of the Instagram integration, right?
Yeah,
Which helped them with the network
absolutely.
effect. But what is
Yes.
keeping people on threads is not everybody is photogenic. Not
Mm.
everybody can take a pout
Mm.
selfie very easily or very happily,
Duck
right?
face.
Some
Yeah.
people, yeah, some people are more verbose, or some people
Yes.
want to express their feelings through text, which
Yes.
is why Twitter actually took off in the beginning. This was
Yes.
the use case for Twitter in the beginning. People could
Mm.
share stuff about themselves, people could talk about themselves, share their feelings, and talk about it, have discussions on it, etc. Right? Twitter moved away from there, and Threads filled that gap,
Mm.
especially just in today's age of loneliness, where we
Mm.
want somebody to listen to us, hear us out. Threads is a perfect platform for that because
So
nobody is listening on you there.
beautiful. No, so now, so if I look at what the experience of Threads is with the experience of Twitter, these are two different animals, right?
Exactly.
And the experience of Threads is more soft and more welcoming and whatever, and Twitter is more hard hitting and stuff like that. So both have places, right?
Exactly.
And if I look at, so what helped them be like this? I think it was the early content creators. So if I look at Twitter, the first people on Twitter were journalists. So if I look at what journalists were doing was they were breaking news and they were creating stories, and that's why the hard-hitting nature of Twitter actually happened. If I
Yeah.
look at threads, the first creators were people who are coming in from Instagram, finding a different way of communicating.
Yeah.
Right. So I think this is the absolute key. What you have to understand, if you're a social media app trying to use India in your story, then what you should be doing is who are the content creators and what type of India do you want to build?
Yeah.
We had a course which Harmony used to teach in India, which was imagining India. Now, the India that you imagine or the India that I imagine can be very different. How
Right.
are you imagining? How are you imagining India as far as your app is concerned? Now, how to use India in your story? Coming back and let's get out of maybe social media apps for a while, because what we're trying to talk to is people who are founders, CEOs, young people with a lot of fire and ambition to do something different. I think you have to imagine your own India.
Yeah.
I think you have to actually then ask yourself, okay, who's going to be on my side as a content creator? Who's going to be on my side as a communicator of the story? And then push that out.
Yeah.
How does that
Yeah.
work for you?
Correct. So any product that's coming into the limelight from the Indian market, now first of all, you understand what is your market. Is it actually
Yes.
the Indian market, or is it a US market, or is it
Yes.
not? Because if immediate revenue making is your goal, if you cannot survive without the patient capital, then perhaps
Hmm.
India is not the market for you. Because all
Hmm.
of these apps, even Meta, Twitter, and all of that,
Yeah.
even
Yeah. Yeah.
if the user number is high from India, the purchases are the revenue is coming from US markets.
Yeah.
So if you don't have the capital for it, if you don't have the patient investments for it, right? So then perhaps build your app for the US market, right?
Yes.
But if making for India, then don't just make in India, make for India. Find
Makes
out which
sense.
India you're making for. Now, just taking one small snippet from the social media bit that we're talking about, right? If I were building Koo, I
Hmm.
perhaps would not have made it as a social media app. I might have made it as a B2B forum sort of a thing, right?
Beautiful.
What
Yeah.
is happening in India right now is the industry is going bonkers,
Yeah.
right? There is a growth, explosive growth story happening, and there is nobody to hear what the problems of businessmen are,
Yeah.
right? So perhaps
Absolutely.
Koo could have been a very good platform where all the businessmen got together and used it as as just what is helping you, what are the problems I'm facing, this is my supply chain problem, etc., etc. I don't have
Exactly.
anybody to talk to. This could be
Exactly. Now, so therefore, you're standing for an India which is connected to growth, and that's
exactly.
great. Okay, so I wanted to share something with you about Amazon and Flipkart. Flipkart, and I probably pinch me if I've said this story before, but it makes a lot of sense. To a Family Man season 3 has started, right? I'm sure that has a deep connect with people's subconscious mind about how they look at Amazon. Now, Flipkart may cry themselves hoarse, and that's what they'd done when Amazon was entering the thing. Be Indian, buy Indian,
Yeah.
okay, all of that. But I don't think Flipkart is considered because they were talking rationally. Well,
Yeah.
Amazon was connecting emotionally, right?
Yeah.
And therein lies the big difference. And Flipkart, by the way, is bought by Walmart in any case, which makes it, so people understand, people know. So you can't make generic statements. So what can help you? are the people who are going to be on your side, who are going to put your story. But for that, you have to understand what you believe in. What's the India that you believe in, right? And then incorporate that part of India into your story. How does
Yeah,
that sound?
and use the people who are going to come to your platform as co-creators for your platform, or even your
Mm,
products, right? Who is going to
yeah.
co-create? Now, for example, you're building a D2C app for India. Your co-creators are the artisans. It's their story
Yes.
that is the product. Your product is not
Absolutely.
the handicraft that you're making. The story, the product is not the Kolhapuri chappal that you're making. It is
Right.
the artisan, the designer who built the Kolhapuri chappal, the culture of that segment of India. That is your
Yeah.
product, right?
Yeah.
So any founder coming, be it social media, be it digital, be it non-digital products, whatever it may be, first of all, use the market that you are going to build for, use that in your story. What are
Yeah.
the cultural nuances of that market? Use that in your story. But your story has to be your story has to be the product that fits into the market.
Yeah, it has to resonate with you as well. Why should people believe in you? We'll come to back to the first question, and maybe that's the way in which we can ask each and every founder and CEO out here, and wrap this up. Why should people believe in you and your story?